So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's Workforce Wednesday webinar. Today's August 22nd, and our title today, our presentation today is Using Nepris as a Workforce Activity. Our presenter is Naomi Woods, and she is an educational specialist with Region 20, or the Alamo Consortium. And I am Olga Escamilla, and I am your host and moderator. This time, I would like to present to you Naomi Wood. So welcome, Naomi. I'm going to read a little bit about Naomi. This is Naomi. Naomi Wood has worked in education in many capacities, from teaching in a Montessori school to teaching academic ESL at a college. She has a love for creative problem solving and innovative approaches, and a determination for developing a talent and potential of others. She is currently on the grant management team for the AEL Alamo Consortium at Education Service Center Region 20, where she leads career navigators, instructional coaches, and tech integration for the consortium. She holds multiple degrees, including a master's in education with a specialization in ESL. So welcome, Naomi. And then we have, if you have any questions, you may see the question slide come up, or we will stop. But at this point, if you have some questions, please let me know, and we'll address those before we get started. But we do want to get started with our presentation because Naomi has so much to share. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer, and I'm sure that Naomi's going to give you a disclaimer. So we're not promoting the product, the Nepris, but we want to share what the Alamo Consortium is doing. And Naomi has presented on this topic before, and there were a lot of people that were interested in knowing more about Nepris. So that is why Naomi is here to share more about Nepris and how it can be used as a workplace activity. So what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to turn that presentation over to Naomi, and she will get started. Welcome, Naomi. And you might unmute yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Olga, for the warm welcome and for the invitation. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to sharing about how the AEL Alamo Consortium is using Nepris. As you stated before, we're not marketing or endorsing the product. We're just sharing about how we've been able to implement it into our programs. And so we've had some interesting developments because of the implementation. And essentially, we started looking at Nepris because we wanted to figure out a way of not only connecting students, with industry experts, but of integrating technology in the classroom. And I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes about technology, which is, there can be infinite use of computer and the new age technology, but if teachers themselves are not able to bring it into the classroom and make it work, then it fails. And that's by Nancy Kissenbaum, who is a former senator. And so essentially we were looking at how can we really leverage technology to help our students achieve their goals. Let's see. So what is Nepris? Nepris essentially connects students and educators to real-world professionals. It improves students' understanding of how what they learn in the class is applied in the workforce. It brings industry experts into the classroom through both online or the virtual platform, and in person. It provides a platform for companies to educate students and classrooms about industry, and it provides a unique platform for various forms of PD. Essentially, Nepris' goal was to connect industry to every classroom and to help companies expand education outreach, and then additionally providing the technology to manage your community. And so that's kind of their take on the use of Nepris. So a little background about it just very quickly. Nepris is a cloud-based platform, and that makes it easy for teachers to connect with industry experts to bring the real world to you. So essentially you see our diagram, you have teachers log into Nepris. Nepris helps you locate industry experts. They also house a huge library of videos from previous chats and sessions that teachers can review. And we kind of spoke a little bit earlier about some of the ways you can connect with experts. And so if you're interested in doing this and using the tool, what you would do is once you have, hello? I have a little feedback there. Once you have set up an account, you can request an expert, you can join industry chats, or you can use their virtual library. And you can also search their library via topics, subjects, whatever you can think of, you can usually find in the library. They have thousands and thousands of videos right now. If you see something or you don't see what you're looking for, you can always create a session to meet that need. Okay, so the Nepris interaction. You have in the center, you have Nepris, and you'll see K through 12, after school, and higher education. The AEL Alamo Consortium has worked really tirelessly to help Nepris create a platform that better serves adult education. Now when you go into setting up a session, you'll have these options, but you'll also have the AEL option. And we're currently working with them to see if we can get them to add our content standards. I think it will be particularly relevant once we have the content standards 2.0, and as well as with that syllabus requirement. So teachers will be able to go in and create sessions based on their content standards, the 2.0, and then other teachers who are in AEL should be able to go and search for videos that match up with the standard that they're trying to address. And so that would be the ideal for the future, for future use for Nepris in AEL. Let me go back to that slide. Let's see. Okay, so industry chats. You saw that you can create a virtual session. You can now, they have a new offering, which is that now you can make requests for professionals, and they will come out and speak with you face to face or your group of students. And so that one is new. But industry chats are essentially companies who are interested in sharing the work they do. Sometimes they talk about employment. They talk about a variety of things going on in a particular industry. And so those are set up at a specific time, and anyone who has access to Nepris or Nepris membership can join in with the industry chats. We'll talk a little bit more about what's free in the next few slides. Let's see, we have some questions here. Handout. Okay, yes, there's a handout. And the content standards 2.0 will be available very soon, so keep an eye out for that. One of the other things that I have not really got to participate in is mentoring. They offer some mentoring, and we're going to watch a little video of how mentoring might look if you were to implement it via Nepris. We have career exploration. Sometimes you have students who come in and they're interested in a career that you have never heard of, you didn't know existed, and you're trying to figure out how you can get information to that student. And Nepris can be a really great tool for that. You can go in and make a request for them to set up a session for you, as well as just go in and look for industry experts. And when you look for an industry expert, you can find someone and kind of, ask them to talk a bit about their career experience. And that's another way that you can use the tool. Another way is student presentations to experts. We have a program here that has an entrepreneurship program. And one of the things that they do is when their students create their business plan, they create a panel via Nepris, and students present to that panel. And so this is another way to help your students fine-tune their presentation skills. If you're in the classroom, you're always giving your students advice and guidance, and sometimes it's nice for them to hear someone who is outside of the classroom and in the industry that they're interested in, and get some advice about their presentation from someone else. We also have live Q&As, and again, we have educator to educator. You can also, if you notice someone's doing a lot of great sessions, you can follow them, or even ask them, hey, can you keep me updated on sessions that you're creating in the future? Or if you see another AEL instructor on there who's doing interesting things, you can even ask to just speak to them and speak with them about some of the work they're doing, or suggestions and advice. We have used this tool for PD. We had a group of career navigators who needed to know a little more about foreign transcripts, and so Nepris set up a session with someone who spoke to the navigators about foreign transcripts, and what options were for students. And so that was a great tool as well. And then, of course, the video library, as I mentioned earlier. So virtual sessions, is very similar to this setup. The WebEx that you're in right now is delivered over the internet. It's in real time, and you can use mobile devices. You can use a laptop or a computer, and essentially they use the Zoom platform. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the virtual sessions, they also use camera, and they really do push for both the presenter and the attendees to use the camera, and for good reason. It really does create a more intimate interaction, especially if it's a smaller session. And then for listeners, you're actually seeing the speaker present, and sometimes they have things to show you, or they're in a lab, and you're following along with them in a lab, or a day in the life of might be another session that you have. And so they do push the use of the camera, but it is optional. And it's delivered to many simultaneously. Some of the ways that we've used it is that I will set up the session, and then our partners, we have 8 different consortium members, they will log in. Their various teachers or career navigators will log in during that session time. And so we have multiple people from our consortium who are watching the same session. One of the things that I would say about the virtual session that was difficult, especially in the beginning, was the classroom setup. I don't know if you've ever tried to set up a classroom, with a video camera close enough, to catch people people speaking as well as loud enough for people to hear, and then catch everyone on camera. So when we first implemented this, we got a lot of feedback that they needed some help with the setup. And so we did eventually move to using an iPad, and then we kind of expanded on that, and we used Apple TV. We connected our Apple TV to a projector, and then we mirrored what was on the iPad to the Apple TV. The only downside was still the speaker issue. If your projector wasn't set up on some type of system for a speaker, then all you just had the iPad speaker. And so then we got a rolling stand that the iPad could clip on, and then we had a speaker as well, the wireless speaker or a wireless speaker. Unfortunately, we learned that you couldn't mirror and use Bluetooth at the same time. So then we had to go wired connection. So you'd have to set up your iPad on the stand with the speaker, and then it would project onto, you would mirror it to the Apple TV, and it would project on a projector. And it sounds a little like a couple of extra steps, but it was really the simplest way. We had also looked into Amazon Fire tablets, which would have been the simplest because of the Amazon Fire TV. But unfortunately, in their new tablets, they removed the ability to mirror. And so we're still ironing out some of those kinks, because we have classes in a variety of settings. Not all of them have technology there waiting. And so we need something that is essentially mobile. And so we're still looking to overcome that hurdle across the consortium. Any questions here? Would the transcript session be available in the video library? That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I would have to look into it. I don't want to say yes, but I know now for accessibility reasons, it's a requirement for most, anyone receiving government funding. I'm not sure. I would be surprised if they didn't have it. And they're a fairly new company, so if they didn't, it could be as simple as making a request. So again, with the virtual session, a teacher goes in and submits a request. There's a few steps, which we'll look at a little later on. Nepris contacts available professionals. Professionals review and accept requests. So when you make the request, there's 2 things that happen. The first thing is it goes to Nepris, their team, and the other thing is that it's posted. So professionals who are already a member of Nexus can also find opportunities to present on sessions related to their industry. Nepris also, before you ever have a session, you'll have a meeting with them, and they'll check your technology. And I will tell you, if you decide to use this tool, go through that process every time. I have been through, I think maybe my 3rd or 4th time I decided not to go through it. And, of course, that was the time that my technology did not work. and kept thinking, wow, if I'd had the check, then I'd have been prepared. So my suggestion is to go through that. On virtual session day, you have your classroom and your professional. You guys will log in, and there will be someone who essentially is kind of a hostess, and they make sure that the person who agreed to log on logs on, and if not, they reach out to them, and they make sure that you show up. Another benefit is that Nepris sends you, once they confirm someone, they send you a meeting invitation via Outlook, which you can, of course, use in Google as well, and that way you don't forget. Because if you're like most people in adult ed, you probably have 1,000,001 things to do and many meetings, so it's kind of easy for that to slip your mind. But with it on your calendar, it's a lot easier to remember. In-person interviews. This is new, and so I have not had the opportunity to do this. It's essentially the same process to make the request. The only difference is that a person comes in person on the day of their session instead of doing it online. I will say in the past that if I know that I'm interested in a specific organization or even a specific person and they're not on Nepris, rather than try to set up a session with that person, I will oftentimes contact Nepris and see if they can set it up for me. And then that way it's recorded, and anybody who didn't get to participate in the session can go in and review it or show it to their classroom. And so if you have someone in mind or a company in mind, you would be able to ask them to find someone. Of course, it's not guaranteed because the person has to be a willing participant as well. And the thing about choosing from people on Nepris is that you know that they are willing. But we've had some pretty interesting requests, and they're pretty good at finding the person. The other thing that I would say is that don't be afraid to say the person doesn't fit. I've had to learn that. We had some people, we had some sessions, 1 or 2 sessions where they paired us with someone who wasn't quite what we were looking for, even though they were, a great person to speak to, wasn't what we were looking for that particular session. And so we just let them know, we needed someone who could, speak to these elements. Sometimes it's needing someone who's local because maybe they found someone, but it was maybe on the East Coast, and it wasn't going to be as relevant as we wanted it to be for the workforce piece. And so, again, just being very clear when you make your request, and you'll get to see what that looks like a little later on, is an important part of having a good session. Industry chats, we spoke about that a little earlier. To give you an example, Workforce Solutions Alamo, our workforce board here in San Antonio, they organize industry chats regularly. And today at 10 a.m. they had one with the healthcare industry, and it was essentially they had employers from 2 different healthcare businesses talk about, their business and what they were looking for, salary, just any kind of questions you could imagine. And it was really interesting to see the questions the students had. First off, they were not taking any prisoners. They were like, much, and they had such fantastic questions, which is another piece of having a great session, which is preparing your students to ask good questions. Thank you, Ivan. Preparing them to ask good questions. And that means taking a little bit of time, classroom time, or giving it as a homework assignment and then reviewing it. And it also builds their confidence in interacting with people in the industry that they're interested in. We've seen that as well. And so, again, our Workforce Solutions Alamo puts these industry chats together, and you can join. And if you have a Nepris license, then you can also join from wherever you're at. It isn't always employers from San Antonio. Sometimes it's employers from other areas, and there is a benefit to that, especially for our more entrepreneurial students who are thinking about starting their own businesses. They get an idea of how these people set up their business or came into their career, and so it's still a really good option. So Nepris announces the session and the industry chat on their site, and then you register for it. And again, they send you an invite. You accept it, you add it to your calendar, and then you'll get those reminders. Hey, you have a session coming up, and then teachers and students can log into the session. Well, essentially, those who have a license can log into the session. So connecting with industry experts. This is one of my favorite tools because sometimes you don't want to do a session. Sometimes you just want to ask a few questions. And I've been known to find people and just keep asking questions. And they're very receptive. They've joined Nepris to share their expertise. And so this is one of the free elements that they have on the Nepris platform, which allows you to look for experts and connect with them and message them. And so, for instance, last year we were looking into, I was doing some investigating and research on drones and where the industry was going. And so I contacted a few people who were, in the industry and just asked them, how did you get into that industry? And, what would you recommend for students who are interested? And do you have any advice? And where are the markets at for this? And, that kind of stuff. And they all responded, and they were all very nice. And I frequently contact experts to ask for advice. And so essentially you go and you type in, in this case I typed in drone, and experts came up, and then I can, look at them, and I can type in drone Texas, and that kind of stuff, and find people in the area. And when you start getting into the unusual careers, again, sometimes it's harder to find people who are local. But it can still provide a nice insight into possible future opportunities that are coming to your area. So if something hasn't arrived, it doesn't mean it never will. It means your students may be able to get in on the ground floor. And then, again, because that part is free, this is something your students can also do. They can log on and connect with experts. And for students who are sometimes not very comfortable with going out and speaking to people, they're still kind of finding their footing with the whole networking piece. It's a very safe way of getting advice or asking for information because the people on there are there to share their expertise. And so it's very likely that you can ask a person something and they'll respond. And even then, you can ask the same question to multiple people and get at least a few responses back. Do you have any questions at the moment?
Naomi, this is Olga. I have a thought in terms of connecting with those industry experts. I wrote in the chat pod that that's a great opportunity for students to be able to connect and ask questions as career exploration. And then,
yes.
And then you had mentioned about finding people in certain careers that are not in the area. That's another good indication for our students to get an idea that, okay, this industry is not here where I'm at. Am I going to have to move to where these jobs are? So that's another good information that students can get. Is this something, if I study this, am I going to have to leave where I'm at, and do I want to leave? So, okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And you made a good point, Olga, because in today's healthcare industry chat, the person was from Florida, and I don't remember the city, but he was saying that they could not find enough CNAs and other experts or other trained professionals, but specifically CNAs. There was a huge shortage. And whereas here in San Antonio, there is not a shortage. We have a lot of people going into that training as well. While there's a demand, there's not a shortage necessarily. And so people were asking, what do you pay there? What are your benefits? And, what are your requirements? Do you have some type of system to support your employees to further their education? And these are the kind of questions the students were asking. So
those are great questions for them to think about. Wow.
Absolutely. They came prepared. Someone had definitely made sure the students were prepared. And so you can tell, you could see the critical thinking that the students had when they were talking about and looking for employment. And so they were looking to see if there were opportunities for them to take their education, someplace that would allow them to further their opportunities as well. So just something to think about when you're looking at the tool. Thank you, Olga. Okay, and I think, do you have this video set up, Olga? I think we're going to open a page for this video here.
I don't. I think that you might have to set it up through your side.
Okay, let's see. Let me see here.
Only because if I play it on mine, they won't be able to hear the audio. Now, I can provide the link. I put it in the chat box earlier. I'm going to provide the link to this section. And what you're going to be doing, if you would like to follow along, I just put the link in there. But you're going to click on, when you get to the page, you're going to click on the mentoring sample, and it looks like this, right? This page.
Yes, it does. There's, it's going to be the second video, and I have it up so I can share my screen, and
Okay.
Hopefully we can.
Let's try and see if it works. Yeah, let's see if it works that way.
There we go. Can you guys see that? Now let's see if we can hear it. This is on mentoring. I kind of mentioned earlier, this is something that we haven't expanded into yet. And so we're looking at how we can use this in some of our upcoming programming. So let's take a look at this. And let me see, I may have my sound down as well.
The students here at Foothill High School have been developing a phone app to help other students with depression.
I first got involved with this project because I've always wanted to build an app. I've always been good with computers and technology, but I've always wanted to learn how to make it do what I want. To be able to make something that I can use and say, I made this.
The reason I wanted to do this app was because I myself have gone through depression. I feel teens need an outlet to be able to talk about what's going on with them, and if they do have depression, be able to reach out to people and get help they need.
We have used Nepris to connect with mentors online, and it has been invaluable to have someone in the field guide us.
I've been working in the technology industry for almost a decade, so when the opportunity to mentor kids came up, I was so enthusiastic. And being able to consult Joel and Janessa on real practical software, applications, and process, it's really just giving them a realistic idea of how things work and how do I actually do what I want to do.
For me, this is important because it's actually able to talk to someone from the field. It's what they do and get professional opinions on how I should do this.
I think both Janessa and Joel did a great job asking questions, and it was incredible to watch them work together in learning each other's part, and this really is the backbone of tech development, all working together to create a product.
In the process of making this app, I was able to connect with doctors on Nepris. Talking with Mr. Rockers helped me see what I need to focus on to help people cope with their depression.
When I first heard about the students' idea of building an app around depression, I wasn't sure how it would go. So I sat right at my desk. I didn't have to get in my car. I didn't have to go anywhere. I got on the Nepris system, and I was in video teleconference.
Usually when people get depressed,
I think together as we were working, what we came up with was a synthesis of things that were better than what they had before. And then they begin to get the idea, you know what, I can do this.
Okay, I will stop it there just because time-wise I think we're running a little short. Let's see if I can unshare now.
We have about 25 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I will. But I kind of wanted you to get an idea of a way of using this, and not just thinking about, creating a session and sitting in the classroom and having someone speak to your students, but thinking about, real integration of technology and using it as a platform to do things, not just improve the things that you're already doing, but thinking about doing things you've never done before. And that's kind of one of the approaches that we take at the Alamo Consortium, is looking at, thinking outside of the box. And so we're working on a way to incorporate mentoring for our students as well. And it will likely start with a small group. And this year we're going to start a student externship, and I'm looking at how we can implement it to assist our students in that program. So and on that link, you'll find quite a few videos about Nepris and how it's been used in some really unique ways. So if you get a chance, just click on the link and visit that site. So the big question, what's free? Creating an account is free. Viewing pre-recorded sessions for 30 days is free. Nepris essentially rolled out a new pricing model very recently. And in fact, we just got the news today about the new pricing model. And so some of the things that were free before now have a time restriction on it, like the pre-recorded video sessions. They used to be free, period, with the free account, and they've changed it to 30 days. Connecting with experts on Nepris is still free, so you can still get on there and ask people a million questions, which I do. Messaging experts on Nepris is free, and you also get one free industry chat. That's changed. Before you had one free session, and now it's the industry chat. They have some pricing listed. Essentially, if you are a large organization, you can have unlimited access for a certain price. They only have K through 12 pricing available, and for others, you'll have to contact them for your size program to see what they can work out. What I will say about Nepris is because they're new, there's still a lot of flexibility, and so they did not have an individual membership listed in the new pricing model. But I spoke with them, and they said they could do the individual membership for $250. And so one of the things we were looking at when we first, started using Nepris, we had a lot of licenses, and so I felt kind of like Oprah, you get a license, you get a license, you get a license. But now the pricing model is a bit different. So we're looking at being more conservative in how we provide the memberships. So we're looking at having our career navigators, at least one person, which would be the career navigator, having an individual membership and them being the point of contact to set up Nepris sessions across their various programs. So as we said before, we have 8 different programs. So every program would have at least one person with the membership, and then people within that organization could arrange with them to set up these different sessions that they needed or they were interested in having for their class. So let's see. Do we have any questions on the membership?
Yes. Is that $250? Is that $250 per year?
It is $250 per year.
Okay.
And just speaking from experience, as I said before, when we first rolled this out, we gave a lot of licenses out, and we noticed that the usage was very low. And for several reasons. One being that there were some people who were just not comfortable with technology in general. They weren't very savvy. And so when those people, even though they thought it was a cool tool, when we gave them the license, they didn't implement it. The other thing is that there were a few steps before. You don't just log in and start using your license. You go through a training, and it's very short. It's on Schoology. It's about 20 minutes. But that was a barrier for some people. They didn't want to go to this other site. They just wanted to go directly to Nepris. And so we just noticed there are a few things that kept people from using it. And then even when people made it to the actual point of having a Nepris license, they were still not sure how to implement it. And so one of the things that we learned that if you were going to roll out really any tool at all, it doesn't matter how basic it may seem, to provide a training on how to use the tool, including, going in, having them, get comfortable with using the tool, setting up a practice session, and they don't actually have to submit it, but they can practice doing it. So the training piece is very important when it comes to implementing any kind of technology tool. And so we had to go back and do several trainings. And this year even we're looking at if we reduce our memberships, how are we going to ensure implementation? With the career navigators, the first year we gave them out, we required that they create at least 2 sessions. And so, that made it a little simpler. We gave them a target, and they used it. And then if they completed it, that's when they got the better setup with the iPad and the stand and the TV to project. And that way, the investment, we knew it was going to be worth it because these were people who had actually already used it and set up and had done it 2 times before we invested in additional technology that might sit in a room and never get used. And so this year we'll have another big push and, another challenge, some type of target for our navigators or people with the license to put it to good use. The other thing is that if it's used well, it really is beneficial for the students. Like I said, just sitting in the session today and seeing the questions that the students ask, and their train of thought and their critical thinking and, having a safe place for them to do that is an important part preparing them for the workforce. And that's just what we've seen as well. So activities, thinking about activities, you can research during problem solving. So, for instance, if you have students, you're teaching, let's say, times tables, and they're like, oh, why do we have to learn this? You're never going to use this. Well, one of the things about the video library on Nepris, because you can go to YouTube, but you kind of get lost in the thousands and thousands and even millions sometimes of videos on YouTube, whereas Nepris is more targeted. You can go in and find out, real-world application of multiplication. Or you can say multiplication in healthcare or math, in healthcare. And you will find several different sessions in there related to that. And if you don't find something, you can create that session. You can say, well, this doesn't meet what I'm looking for. It's not in line with my, my content standards or the area that I'm trying to cover. And you can set up a session and request it. And in that capacity, your students can actually ask questions as well, like, how important is it to know this in this field? One of the best sessions I've seen, it was done by one of my coworkers for the teacher externship with TD Industries, and one of the teachers asked about, math in the construction industry. And he gave this great, piece about what you really needed to know in the construction industry, what you really had to know. And he talked about how a lot of people don't realize they know it, and even when you talk to people in construction, they don't think they're good at math but they're using it all the time, so they don't really think about it being math. And so it was just a great piece that our teachers could take back to their students in talking about real-world and workplace application. So mentoring, we saw that. You can use it for mentoring competitions. If you have a competition for the best business plan or, best project, or you're someone who does a lot of project-based learning, you can have mentors or even judges for your project. Exploring local or mentoring for job skills, same thing. If there's a specific skill that your students aren't aware of, speaking with someone in the industry is the best way about finding out the real-world application for that skill. And then exploring local companies' offerings, speaking to people who work for the company. They may be limited on some of the information they can share, but it's just amazing to hear them talk about what it took for them to get into that company and how they arrived there and what their career path was. It's just another great way of using the tool. Public audience and feedback. As I said before, you can post things. So, you can ask people to comment on projects and share or provide feedback, etc. And then career awareness and investigations, which Olga mentioned before, for students who aren't sure what they're interested in or what area they want to go into. The ability to speak to multiple professionals in a variety of backgrounds is a really fantastic opportunity. Do we have any questions? Okay, I have 15 minutes, so we're going to keep going. Keys to a great session, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Take time to build a good session request. I cannot say this enough. Many times I thought I had a good session request, and it came back, like I said, there was not a good match, and I realized, oh, I didn't mention that. I assumed that they knew that. Or I forgot that part, or I also needed this. So taking time to kind of write out what you're looking for on your session is important. They're going to ask you to list your desired outcomes, and you should do that even before. Think about what you want the outcome to be so you can build the session, with the end result in mind. There goes that backward design. List the types of questions you want answered, So putting in a list of questions for a potential presenter to look at can really help them decide, if they're comfortable enough to present. Public speaking, in any form is still not always easy for people. So looking at the questions and kind of having an idea of what the conversation looks like, having the questions listed will ensure that you have a larger pool to select from. The other part is preparing your students, which I mentioned earlier. Have your students write out their questions, and then the other piece is to review student questions and ask them to clarify if necessary. So that piece helps them to think about or to understand how good questions are created, and that's the critical thinking piece. and that's another skill that they will take well beyond the classroom. So not just having them work, write the questions, but reviewing them and helping them identify what a good question is. And there's lots of books on that. Asking a good question can take you a long way, so it's a very important skill to have. Develop a list of questions in case students get nervous. So some students, they're going to prepare their questions, you're going to help them clarify it, and then when it comes time, they're going to be terrified to ask the questions, or they're not going to be sure of that question that you guys worked on. So just having a list to pull from that students can look at and ask when they feel confident is another way of making them feel comfortable and helping them with the public speaking and the networking and interaction. And then incorporate session into a lesson plan to ensure it is relevant. Setting up a session just because it's cool doesn't necessarily meet all the needs, depending on whether or not you're a career navigator or you're in the classroom. If you're in the classroom, it's very important that whatever session you create is relevant to a lesson plan. And again, it's reinforcing learning and providing that support for students in addition to just the opportunity to speak to an employer or a professional or an expert in a field. So thinking about it from those terms can help you create a good session. And it also allows you to, again, ensure that your presenter is prepared, right? They know that this is part of a lesson on mathematics in the industry, and so they come much more prepared to participate in that. Okay, I now have 11 minutes. Okay. So we kind of talked about the free accounts, thinking about it, not just creating sessions for yourself, but thinking about having your students go in there and sign in and participate in sessions as well in these industry chats on their own is a way of improving their digital literacy. And then also it's an opportunity to go over digital literacy skills, such as, one of the things about Nepris is they don't necessarily, if the people are just on Nepris and you speak to or message someone who's a professional, this is not someone who's been vetted. They just go on Nepris and list themselves as a professional. So talking about internet safety and how to keep yourself safe, not sharing information, personal information online, and keeping it about business, etc. It's just another opportunity to better prepare students. Sessions can be shared via a Zoom link, but it's what we call just in time. That means you can't share the link until you're already in. If you have a session where you're going to have people logging in from various areas that don't have accounts, you should work with Nepris before that date to let them know that you have students who are going to be calling in from various sites. Students can call in or, join in via the internet or, the Zoom link. So there's two different ways to do it. Let's see here. Okay, we already talked about being aware, don't share personal information. So a list of what you need. You need an internet connection. There's no way of getting around that right now. Whether it's a hotspot or, whatever it is you're using, you have to have internet. You need something that can connect to the internet. So any kind of device. I've done it on my cell phone, in my car, in between meetings. I've held sessions. You need a microphone or speaker or a device that has that. You need a projector and screen. If you have a small group, an iPad is more than sufficient. It has a webcam and a speaker and all of that, and the app for Zoom is easy to install, because that's another piece that you'll have to have. And this is old. I apologize for this. It says one free session, but as I mentioned, we found out today there's a new pricing model, and the one free session is no longer available. You now can participate in one free industry chat. So you'll set up an account when you go in if you have not done so, and create an account or update profile. You can explore the video library, submit a new session request, search for San Antonio professionals. That's if you're in San Antonio. Wherever you're at, you can look for professionals in that area. And I'm going to go down to our questions here before we run out of time here.
It's about 7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay. So what I would like to get to before we go is just for you to take time to think about how to use Nepris for in adult education in ways that will also prepare students for the workforce. And so if you can just share your response in the chat room, how would you incorporate Nepris? if you have a large college and career readiness class with many different career interests. And just, you can respond in the chat. So if you were a career navigator and you're working with college and career readiness students, you have a lot of different students who are interested in different types of careers. What would be a way to use Nepris to address that? I see Olga said the idea of career exploration and thinking about what that would look like. For instance, we mentioned earlier, yes, that's right. Have students look up experts in the field they are interested in. Having students log on and create an account and actually reaching out to an expert or using the video library is a great way of dealing with a large group of students who are not interested in the same industry. Let's see here. Does everyone have a Nepris account? I know there was a, yes, Kia, thank you. Allow students to explore different career paths and allow them to connect with their industry field of choice. Exactly. Thank you, Kia. Here's another question. How would you incorporate Nepris if you have two immigrants who want to speak with immigrants who have created successful careers in healthcare? What would you do to help these two immigrants using Nepris? What would that look like if you're going to use Nepris to help two immigrants who want to speak with immigrants who have created successful careers? Live industry experts in that population, from Kia Ellis. Thank you. And this is, we're actually doing this with one of our sessions. We have a lot of people interested in healthcare. We have someone who's an immigrant, someone who's a GED recipient, and someone who's just had a very long career in the healthcare industry. And we set up a session geared toward our students who are interested in in the healthcare, who are working on their GED or ESL. And finally, let's see here. We have a few minutes. If you have a Nepris account, you can go into the Nepris account, and we're going to have a scavenger hunt the last 4 minutes of our session. And the first person to post the response in the chat, if you have access to Nepris, you're going to receive a certificate that states you are the king or queen of the Workforce Wednesday Nepris session. And I believe Olga has some other prizes as well to share. You can go to nepris.com. Oh, sorry, Kia. And I'm going to put my email in here in case we run out of time. And we will do it as the first person to, if we run out of time, the first person to send it to my email. And let me see. Does anyone have an account already, or are you still working on creating the account?
I hear crickets.
Okay, if you are not familiar, you do not have an account, I have a few slides. We have like 2 minutes that I can go over. When you go to Nepris, the first page, this is what you're going to see. And it says signing up. You're going to go to sign up, of course, because you don't have an account already. And, you know, they do the same thing that everyone does. They send you an email that says, hey, you signed up for Nepris. And from there, you can go in and you can start to explore. This is what your dashboard looks like. I know it's a little small. This is what your dashboard looks like. You can go in and you can post. You can use any zip code, and you don't have to find an expert in your zip code. You can use any zip code to sign up. And it's available across the U.S., so you may not have as many options for an expert. I'm answering a question about whether or not you have to use San Antonio. You do not. You can use San Antonio if you'd like, but you can use any zip code.
So what I did, Naomi, is I posted, right after you posted your email address, I posted the scavenger hunt instructions.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
So if y'all want to copy and paste those, you could, and if you're interested in participating in the scavenger hunt, you could send those responses to Naomi, and then she'll let me know, and we will get you a special prize for the first one who responds.
This is what your page for the create session request looks like, and we're out of time. But if you have any questions and you want a little more information on it, please reach out to me. Again, I like the tool. We're still looking at how to expand on it. And whenever I do this session, there's always somebody who has an idea that I've never thought of. And so share your ideas as well if you've got some in the chat. Thank you again. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, Naomi, and thank you all for participating in joining us today for Workplace Wednesday. We appreciate y'all coming, and we hope that you continue. And Naomi, great information about this platform. And again, there's some free aspects to it, so it's great that we're able to access them, at least a few for free for at least 30 days. And thank you for sharing that, because it's so, we sometimes we can't think of activities to do, and this is a great one. And like you said, you even gave us an example of how they used it today and how the students were so prepared. So it's a great platform for sharing. So thank you again, Naomi, very much, and thank you all for attending. So I'm going to stay on in case anybody has questions. Ivan said thank you privately.
Oh, you're welcome, Ivan.
Naomi, did you have any questions or anything?
No, I don't. Thank you.
No.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you. And I see people are logging off. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Kia. Thank you, Guadalupe. All right, Naomi, I'm going to end the session. Thank you so much, and I will be emailing you.
Thank you.